Hello and welcome. In this video, we will export a tree map from the Arboreal node. We will import and use the map in Unreal Engine and use it as a guide for the placement of our trees. So open up Gaea and your terrain. Of course, the terrain I have created is included in the course and you are free to use it. The file is named final_terrain.tor. So first thing, find the Arboreal node, right click and mark for export. In the build settings, we now have our Arboreal node. Click the text that says all, and we only want to export the trees map. So deselect output and colorize. Only exporting and trees should be checkmarked. Then set your build resolution. Choose one that matches Unreal. So in my case, I'm using a 4K resolution, 4033. Then make sure to set your build destination so you can find the file after, and simply start build. In the course resources, I also include this 4K tree map. Building the 4K file takes quite a while, so I've edited to speed up the process here. If you want to, you can also change the format of the image file, but TIFF is fine, so I'm sticking with the default. So the build is done and we can take a look at the map. By default, it's called Arboreal-Tree Mask. So here we have the tree map in Photoshop, and I just wanted to show you what it looks like. You don't actually need to open it in a image viewer. As you can see, we have 1 pixel for every tree. And now we can easily use this map in Unreal Engine to guide the placement of our trees. So open up Unreal Engine and use whatever project you have, if that is the project from this course that you've been following or your own project. Just make sure you have the same terrain imported which you have exported the tree map for, so the two matches each other. So here we have the terrain, no materials and no trees. Let's start by simply importing the tree map file. You can simply drag and drop the file from Windows Explorer into the content browser, or you can click on import and navigate to the file. I have my file right here. After the import is done, double click the file to see its settings. And we are going to change the compression setting. Select grayscale. If you ever have trouble finding a particular setting, use the search bar at the top here. You could have simply typed compression and you'd easily find it. Okay, so now we can save this file, save, or we could use Ctrl S, close. Because we are going to use the Procedural Content Generation framework to place our trees, go into Edit and Plugins, search for PCG, and simply enable all of these. And you will be asked to restart the engine. For this example, I will use 3 assets from FabStore. If you want to follow along and use the exact same one, go to Window, Fab, search for temperate, and this is the one I will be using just for this example, temperate vegetation spruce forest. If you want to use any other resource, feel free, any other asset you want to use. If you search for Quixel, you will find a lot of high quality free tree assets like European beech, European hornbeam, and there are also European black alder. I think this medieval village has some good ones. So use whatever you want to. It's not important. Once you found whatever you want to use, go back here. You simply click Add to Project after you've purchased or added to your library. Okay, so now let's right click, PCG, PCG graph. We can call this PCG trees. And simply drag it into your level. You see it's denoted by a cube here. So the way the PCG works is that it will place objects within these bounds, because we want trees placed on our entire terrain. We have to increase its scale here, increase its bounds. So make sure it's selected, and on scale here, let's try 2500, 2500, and maybe 1500. Let's zoom out here. And we can check the top view. Simply place it according to our terrain. And check the left view. That is fine. It doesn't have to match the bottom of the terrain. It just have to cover it. Make sure everything is within bounds. Let's go back here to perspective. Everything looks good. Okay, so double click the PCG to open it. We need a couple of nodes, so let's just add all of them at once and then connect them after. Simply right click and start typing to find what you need. Get texture data, transform points, projection, static mesh spawner, and get landscape data. So the way we will connect these, first we want to get our texture data, and going to transform points. These two can just move out of the way, and into projection from transform points, get landscape data. Let's place it here somewhere, and then we want to spawn our meshes, our trees. So click first on get texture data. There is a texel size setting here. Increase this to 1000. If this setting is set too low, things will get really computationally expensive and cause Unreal Engine to hang, and the editor might crash. So there is a description here. The texel size of 1 texel in centimeters used when calling to point data. So basically it has to do with how this node samples our texture data, and if this number is too low, the density of our meshes will be too high. So in essence, too many meshes will be spawned, and too many samples is computationally expensive. So keep it at 1000 for now, and we will adjust it later. We can do a save here, Control S, or simply just file save. Let's connect get texture data to transform points. You simply left click and drag out a connector, and out from transform points to in projection, and out to static mesh spawner. And this get landscape data will go from out and to projection target. Go back to get texture data, and here where it says texture and none, simply click and type trees, or actually it's tree, arboreal tree mask, select it. Then select the static mesh spawner, and under mesh selector it says mesh entries. Click the plus sign here and we simply then add one element to the array. You can see it starts at index 0. We could add multiple if we want multiple meshes to be spawned, but we will start with only one tree. Expand index 0 here and expand descriptor. And where it says static mesh, click none and simply search for what you need. I'm going to use smpine 01. Now we can restore this down. And we can see we already have trees spawning. Let's just click here to deselect and try to get a better view here. So we have a lot of trees, and right away we see a couple of problems. First of all, the trees spawn where there should be water. So obviously the PCG is not respecting our tree map right now. There is also one more issue. The trees spawn at an angle, and that's not how trees grow. They grow straight up, even though the terrain is angled, at least most of the time. So we'll have to fix this. It looks kind of corny. Okay, so back into the graph here. You can use right click and drag to pan around in the graph. Click on Get Landscape Data. And where it says Get Height Only, make sure it's selected. Let's see if that fixes it. Okay, we can see the trees now, they grow straight up. Try off, on. So for this next problem, trees are growing in the water. So let's check out Get Texture Data. It's actually pretty simple. It has to do with which channel the node is sampling. And we can see here density source channel. It says alpha. Let's simply change it to red. Aha. So that was the problem. The wrong channel. So we've cleared our water area of trees. And we are going to do one more thing here now. Remember the texel size. We set it to 1000 just to not like overload Unreal Engine or the editor and our computer. But now we can slowly increase it. I suggest starting with maybe 300. So we reduce the number, but we then increase the density of our trees. That looks better. And actually now, if we go into Gaea, let's minimize this one and check out this. Let's just adjust the camera here and set it to about the same as in Unreal Engine. Of course, the FOV and everything is different. The camera lens is different, but just get it close enough. Then go back into Unreal. And now we can see the tree growth is exactly like it is in Gaea. This is a very good match. If we go over here, inspect an area closer, we can tell that it's correct and it's respecting our tree map. So that's how easy that is. But there's a couple of more things we can look at before we end this video. Every tree is the same size. It's the same height. Of course, you can fix this in multiple ways. You can use several different tree meshes. If we go back into the static mesh spawner, you could add multiple meshes here. And there's a weight setting. So if you set the weight to 0, you remove every instance of that mesh. But let's say you set this one to 10. Actually, that's too much. Let's set it to 2. That's still too much. How about 1? And then we add another mesh here, descriptor, and do sm pine 0, 2. Let's do 2 for weight here. That's a lot of trees. Let's go back into get texture data and increase the texel size. Okay, that's better. Now we have a couple of tree variations. Into the static mesh again, I'm going to add several. SM Pine 03. Let's do one more. SM Pine 04. Zero 05. Okay, so now we have a lot of trees here. Let's maybe change the weight now. Let's say I'd like more of this one. So 3. We got 2 here. I got 1 here. 3 and 1. Okay. Then we can go back and adjust texel size again. That does look better. But we have a few more problems. The trees are growing in a grid. So that's where transform points comes into play. We can see we have values here for offset, rotation, and scale. Let's start with this scale. Let's say the trees can go from 0.1 to 2.5. Now the trees are of varying size. They are of varying height. And there are different models, different meshes. One more thing I'd like to change. I mean, you can play with these settings as much as you want, and you can get some good results just playing with offsets and scale. In get texture data, the most precise sampling is to set this filter to point. You see, it did some changes now. It actually reduced the number of trees, and this is because it now samples pixels more accurately from the texture map or the height map. And this is better for things like avoiding rivers, for instance, because we don't want any tree growth inside our rivers. And maybe we can again reduce the texel size slightly now to increase the density of the trees. This ultimately just comes down to personal preference and whatever you are going for. And I recommend you have nanite enabled trees. So just go into your settings, project settings, search for nanite, make sure it is enabled, and similarly, if you find your asset SM Pine 01, double click it, search for nanite, enable nanite support, and then just save it. This can improve performance a lot. And as you can see, even in the distance, all the trees are rendered. So that is it for this video, but I would like to give you some tips on where to take it from here. You should start by acquiring some good ground materials, for instance forest ground type materials for areas where the tree growth is at its most dense, and you can find a lot of good free materials on Fab. Many of them are from Quixel, previously Megascan's assets. You would then paint this material manually on the terrain. Of course you can use an auto material, but you will likely get a better result doing it manually. Then you'd find other materials that are more rocky, and you would paint the mountains and most steep parts with this material. I would also gather more foliage meshes like brushes, dead trees and fallen logs, and all types of meshes that befit a forest. Then you could either just paint these using the foliage painter or create several more PCG graphs and only scale and place it to where you would actually need these meshes spawned, not covering the entire terrain with one PCG as we did this time. If you have an area where there's supposed to be water like in this terrain, you would have to decide if this is for a game, if the player should be able to swim and dive in the water, then you would need to use the terrain sculpt tools to create some depth there and then add a water mesh. If the player will be blocked from walking on this area, you could simply paint water material on it. If there are certain things you would like to learn more about and videos or even entire courses you would like me to create, feel free to get in touch, send me a message. And as always, I really appreciate the feedback. In fact, this video was made on the basis of feedback I got in a review. So that's it for this video. I hope you learned something, and have a happy time Unreal editing, and experiment and have fun, play around, and you can get a lot of good results using the techniques I've shown in this course.